Okay, so my name's Ron Fitch. I'm the Garrison commander at Fort Carson, and we took over incident command of the fire that had been out here, part of which had started a little bit yesterday and was dealt with in Hanover, and then we had a fire start this afternoon, or actually late morning, on Fort Carson, and the wind was working against us today, and it moved it over the border of the installation into some of the more rural area over here. At some point earlier this afternoon, the flare-up of the Hanover fire yesterday and then the fire that we had from Fort Carson joined together and then continued to burn, and is still burning this way here this afternoon. The fire is burning more to the east than it is really north and south. It's kind of in a big rectangular area, if you will, a couple hundred meters north-south, and then a little long as it moves towards I-25. But we just took a aerial recon of the fire, if you will, and I don't think it'll reach I-25. We have some pretty good mixture of assets out there between engineering type equipment like bulldozers and graders, and then we're using aviation equipment from the fort, from our aviation brigade, to use our Bambi buckets again to drop water on the fire. And then we've also had some fixed wing assets out here more recently dropping some fire retardant as well to prevent it from growing much further. As well, you can look at the job that was done out here today by all the great cooperation again that we have amongst the two counties and the Fort Carson assets and all the local agencies that are participating. Really did a fantastic job evacuating people as a precautionary member, and then really looking at some of the structure protection that was done here today. You could really see it, how well it was done, that structure protection from the air that we just went up and looked at. We know there were several structures lost. Don't have too many details on the impact of what that was right now, but we're not tracking any loss of life or injury at this time, which is, the thing that we're looking forward to protect the most. And so, pending any questions that you all may have, that was kind of the update I had at this time.
So how was it sparked?
Which one?
The fire that began on Fort Carson.
So we are in the midst of, as most of you are aware, this is a heavy deployment year for Fort Carson. We just recently sent a brigade to Afghanistan. In about another 4 weeks, we're going to send another brigade to Afghanistan, and then we're also preparing for future deployments that we don't have orders yet for, but that we do expect they're going to be coming by summer. And so we're in a continuous training cycle up until those deployments, the soldiers actually leave to go overseas. And so they were out there doing some training today, combined training between some aviation assets and some infantry. And at some point, we had a fire start in the vicinity of that range today.
I was given the information that it could potentially been an M1A2 tank fire. Is that accurate? Do we know?
No, I don't believe so, because where the range was, it was mostly infantry, and they would not be out there with tanks.
So do you guys do the same training regardless of what the conditions are? Or?
So because of the deployment cycle, like it's red flag conditions, currently we're in that high fire danger area. We have to train in order to prepare those soldiers to go in some of those dangerous situations that they're going to encounter in places like mostly Afghanistan for us this year, but we may expect to deploy to some other locations across the globe by summer or fall.
And so those have to be outside then?
They absolutely have to be outside. You have to practice your proficiency on all of your weapons, because those are the things that are going to save your life and the lives of your fellow soldiers, both from our country and then our allies that are over there participating with us in those engagements as well.
Speaking to residents here, they said that they're used to having fires in the area because of Fort Carson, but today you said several structures have been destroyed because of the fire. I mean, it's a red flag day and we're doing this training. We know that this training has to be done, but what about these houses being destroyed and these families that no longer have a home because of it?
Yep, so we'll go back and we're going to take a look at that in conjunction with the county and the state as we look to recoup some of the expenses. But I would also highlight that we did have the fire flare up from yesterday's fire that was down here. And so it's hard to say what really caused the damage to those structures at that time. And that's something that we'll go back to take a look at in conjunction with both Pueblo and El Paso County.
And do you have an estimate right now on size and also containment?
Sure. So we're working hard on containment. I can't give you a percentage right now. And the size that we're tracking is about 2,100 acres.
I'm sorry, what's that?
2,100 acres.
Thank you so much.
Okay? All right. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. Bill Elder, El Paso County Sheriff. And like the Colonel said, we'll wait for the truck to go by. like the colonel said, that there's a percentage of this fire that's on Fort Carson that burned off of Fort Carson, and there's probably about 40% of it that's in El Paso County, some that's in Pueblo County as well. The bonus to this is the great collaboration that we've got with all of our local fire agencies as well as Fort Carson. We've made some really good strides in developing relationships with everybody. The colonel and I have had some time together in the past, so we understood what was happening, and it's been a good move. So we think we've got a plan to attack it and get it out. We're hoping to have it out by nightfall. We've got a couple of aircraft that are a couple of heavy tankers that are coming in. We do have a contract with that global super tanker, but I don't think this thing's going to be anywhere near big enough to need that kind of asset. But we've got some things in play, and the key to this is get the fire out, and then we'll figure out the rest of it later on down the road.
Sheriff Elder, you said this was probably you're hoping to have this out by tonight. We've got a lot of people out here waiting to get back to their homes. Is there any timetable for when this might happen?
No, it's you know, like the colonel said, it's a big area. It's a big area. They've spent a lot of time in the early attack to protect the structures that are there, as many structures as they can. We've also evacuated personnel and livestock, and so that's taken some time as opposed to attacking the fire. Right now they've got those structures, what they believe is safe at this point, and so the majority of the personnel that are assigned to this thing now are going to attack the fire line and do everything that they can to get it out. You'll see a heavy tanker will come in here in a little bit and drop some retardant on that'll keep the fire from spreading. They're doing some back burns to burn up some of the green fuel so that we can get this thing under control quickly.
For the people who are still in the streets, specifically for those restrictions, people being pushed out, we're not adding to those restrictions right now.
Not yet. We have evacuations all the way up to PPIR, and I can't tell you the exact southern boundary, and then everything over to the interstate. We've got that pretty well cleared out, we believe, and so nobody's going to be allowed back in until we can get this thing completely knocked down. We've got, as you can see, people streaming in here. We've got a ton of assets. We've got tons of equipment and water and retardant available, and so we'll stay on it until this thing is out. We hope to get it out before midnight.
I'm seeing a Red Cross person behind you.
They're going to talk about the resources that we've got for personnel that are here and where we can direct them, and some of the resources that we'll use to replenish the fuels that the firefighters are using. So
this is for Carson's fire, but you're obviously helping out. How many other people are helping in this? Is this an all-exact situation?
Fort Carson has taken over the incident control, and we did that early on because when we did that put Fort Carson's resources available to fight this fire. The air attack systems, there were a couple of big helicopters out here dropping buckets of water on. We did that very early on because we wanted those resources in play, and that was the way that we had to do this, was turn this fire over to Fort Carson's Incident Command. It is not necessarily being called Fort Carson's fire. We don't know where it came from. I just want to get it out.
Sheriff, how many people have been evacuated to you?
Right off the top of my head, do we know how many people have been evacuated? 250 homes have been evacuated.
And we don't have a better estimate right now on how many homes have been lost?
No, we don't. We did a flyover a little bit ago to assess the size of the fire and the direction of the burn. The problem is from that altitude, it's a little tough to tell where structures are. There's a significant amount of burn in there, but you can also tell where fires have burned around homes where the structures have been protected.
Sheriff, we've got a lot of people wondering the specific location of where this burn is. Do we have any cross streets?
You know, it's hard to say. It's a very large burn area. It's just almost impossible to tell you exactly where that is. It has spread because the wind was shifting so quickly. It took different paths and different directions in a multitude of different ways. But I believe that they've got a fairly good control over the structures that were up in there, especially the ones later on.
So it sounds like you're saying those structures, and
there are structures that we have lost. I will tell you that there are structures that were early on in the fire in the location they're calling Area Alpha that were lost. I can't tell you how many. That appears to me to be the biggest area of loss, but again, from that altitude, it's tough to tell.
But you were saying from this point on, we think we have protection around the current structures left.
Provided we don't get a big change in weather, wind, those kinds of things, we think so. The cool weather will help us. We've got plenty of people out here to attack it.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Bill Fortune. I'm the Public Information Officer for the American Red Cross. I'm here to tell you that we do have an evacuation center open at 500 Alabama Avenue in Fountain. We have the capability of housing people overnight should that be necessary. We're also providing food for the firefighters and for the clients that are there at our evacuation center. We're also providing food for the people that are down at the Colorado State Fairgrounds with the large animals. We also now have 2 locations where people can take their small pets to make sure that they're taken care of. It would be at no cost to the client to go and take these animals. Typically, we don't allow animals in our people shelter, and we'll continue to provide it in that way as long as we have access to facilities for small pets.
So what are those facilities?
Yeah. So the first one is called Land of Oz, and that's spelled AHS. And that is located at 12599 Jordan Road in Fountain. The other location in Pueblo County is the Pueblo Animal Services, and that is at 4600 Eagle Ridge Boulevard, the north side of Pueblo. And then large animals now are being housed at the Colorado State Fairgrounds.
So right now, when I was just at that shelter, they were telling me it is specifically a center, not a shelter yet.
That's correct. We call it an evacuation center until we decide that people need to stay overnight, and at that point, we just change the name to the shelter. We won't change the location. We'll just add cots and other things, but we don't put the cots in there until we know we need them.
So if people are just hanging out there right now, they have nowhere else to go, if it becomes a thing where they're going to continue to be evacuated, they can then spend the night there?
Absolutely. That's going to be our plan, and we'll be available to them for as long as there are people evacuated. We'll also have caseworkers available in the next coming days to help people that need some help with recovery.
For those people watching at home and hearing what's going on, we're getting a lot of calls and texts about people that want to help. How can people at home help the situation, what's going on, volunteering, bringing food, anything like that?
Right now, we have all the assets that we need to provide support, whether it's sheltering or simply as a center to provide information. So from the Red Cross point of view, we're good with that. I believe the fire departments all have the assets that they need. We've had people come by with cases of water, that sort of thing, but we have ample supplies of that as well. So at this point, we're asking people not to bring things to our center or shelter so that we can make sure we have room for the people that are there. If we have a need, then we'll make that call out through the media to let them know what we need. Any other questions? All right.
I wanted to ask one last. Could we ask one last question of you? I just wanted to see if are we doing training tomorrow as well? Is there going to be any halt on training at all?
So we'll evaluate that tomorrow. Tomorrow really being Saturday, we'll have to take a hard look at it. We went into a check fire this afternoon. It's really halt training until we can get a good handle on the situation here. And then when we took over the incident command from the Hanover department, we're really focused out here right now at this point. But tomorrow we'll take a good evaluation.
So there is a chance tomorrow we'll still be firing these same drills.
Yeah, depending on how this turns out here this evening. I think so.
Thank you.